It was another wild week in the NFL as two teams, the Lions and the Panthers, broke 11-game and 10-game losing streaks to pull off the big upsets, causing more casualties in NFL Survivor Pools. We'll go over all of it and get you ready for week 4, all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants.
Wow, what a crazy week. Beware of the big cat, Michael. The Panthers and the Lions pull off the upset. Personally, to me, I want to talk about that Panther game. So the LA Chargers outgained the Panthers 436 total yards to 302. But it was once again the big equalizer, something that's so hard to predict. Turnovers. The Chargers turned the ball over 4 times and Carolina 0 times. It's so hard to win in the NFL if you're going to turn the ball over 4 times more than your opponent.
I thought this was a very safe pick. Like you say, during the game, it looked that way. It was a popular pick amongst several polls out there. I think you were saying that how many games in a row had Carolina lost?
Yeah, Carolina had lost 10 in a row, all 10 of those with Christian McCaffrey. And then this is the first game without Christian McCaffrey, and they pull off the upset. Go figure.
Yeah, and what a bummer at the end of the game there. I mean, Herbert, I think did fine other than some of those turnovers that he contributed to. And then we have that hook and ladder that really looked like it was going to work, and just a little bit of a mix up.
Yeah, despite all of the problems that the Chargers had, they could have won it on the last play, down 5, so a touchdown wins it no matter what. They complete the ball, I think it was right around the 15-yard line to Keenan Allen, a really well-designed play where he laterals it back to Austin Eckler. There was no one between Austin Eckler and the end zone. But unfortunately, the toss was a little off target, and he wasn't able to corral it properly. So,
and similar circumstances in that Cardinal game as well, right? And so, if we go quickly to the poll, let's talk about it. Those 2 games alone knocked out 19 of the 31 who got knocked out. So that was a big one. In fact, really everyone that got knocked out was because of that. We're not picking at another 5 people who knocked out. So we're from the 94 that we had coming in, we're down to 63.
Wow, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty 63. Mea culpa to all of those folks who picked the Chargers because of what I said. Hey, I admit it, I was off. I feel like we got unlucky, but the reality is we're on the sidelines. But Michael, congratulations to you. 3 straight weeks. I'm glad you're on the show. So don't screw it up this week, Michael.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
Let's get to this week's games. The 6 highest spread games, I'll put it on the board. The only team that is on the road is Seattle, 6.5-point favorites at Miami. The other 5 bigger favorites are all at home. Green Bay, 7 over Atlanta. Same thing with Kansas City, 7 over the New England Patriots. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 7.5-point favorites over those darn LA Chargers. Then we got the 2 games that are the huge favorites. The Rams at home, 13 over the New York Giants. And actually, I made a mistake. There is one more game where the road team, Baltimore, is actually on the road, 13.5-point favorites at the Washington football team. Michael, let's start with the Seattle at Miami game. I'm just really excited that I finally get to talk about my Seahawks. They're one of the highest point spreads. I just want to start talking about Russell Wilson. To me, MVP means how good would the team be without that player, and how good would the team be with that player? Russell Wilson is the MVP of the NFL. If he does not get it this year, barring like an injury or something that happens.
We're 3 games in, Eric. Come on, hold your horse.
Let's give it to him. Hey, you know what? The season may end next week. But he's been sensational. As good as Wilson is, and I'm a little concerned about the Seahawks traveling from coast to coast, playing in that early morning game with a secondary that has been very suspect. I can't pick the Seahawks this week, as much as a homer that I am. And look, this is all you need to know. The Seahawks' future value. They host the two New York teams. That's the Jets and the Giants. So just be patient and wait on the Seahawks.
Yeah, no, I mean, they are the most fun team, in my opinion, to watch. That Dallas game was so much fun to watch all the way through. But yeah, the Seattle defense is a little bit scary. And so turnovers, like we just talked about, could change the face of that game. You know, Miami does play a little bit more of a disciplined game because of how they are, the makeup of their team. And, you know, what if Russell Wilson went down, you know? So that would really, like you say, affect the team. So I think this is one to save, like you say.
All right, so we're both passing on that Seattle game. By the way, you mentioned that Dallas and Seattle game was so exciting. Yes, but as a Seahawks fan, nerve-wracking. Green Bay, 7-point favorites at Atlanta. Against Atlanta. It's in Green Bay. You got a winless team, and you've got a team that's undefeated. What are your thoughts on this one?
This is another game that I wouldn't touch, right? So Lambeau is not the same without the fans there in, you know, at the field, and it's also not, you know, cold weather quite yet. And so you're not going to get either one of those advantages. So basically you're going based on the 3-0 versus the 0-3. And despite Atlanta's inability to win, including against mediocre teams at the end of games and blowing leads, they have shown that they are a very capable team. And I'm still not quite on the Green Bay train. I'm a big fan of, you know, a number of the players in that organization and the coaching, you know, change that they made with LaFleur. But no, I'm staying away from this game. It scares me. I think Atlanta can beat pretty much anyone in the league on any given Sunday.
Yeah, well, that's certainly true because they did very well for most of the game against right now the undefeated Bears and the Dallas Cowboys, who are pretty good, and then they just blew it. But I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I'm more of a believer in this Green Bay Packer team than you are. Let's remember last year, this team made it to the NFC Championship game. That offense, wow, does it look good. They scored more points than anyone in the entire NFL. You know, everyone thinks about Dallas or the Seahawks or the Chiefs. It's been Green Bay. And they've done it against the Vikings, the Saints, and the Lions. So very impressive. Meanwhile, guess who, Michael, has given up the most points this year? It's the Atlanta Falcons.
But those have all been given up in, you know, situations where they played kind of like they did against New England in the Super Bowl a few years and basically played not to lose, right? And so I agree with you. Green Bay has been very impressive. I think they've figured out how to incorporate the run game. But don't forget the talent that they don't have around Aaron Rodgers, right? I think you can't estimate how much teams might be able to exploit that at some point. They just haven't done so yet this year.
I want to know what's going to happen with the star wide receivers in this game. Neither Julio Jones for Atlanta nor Davante Adams for Green Bay played last week. If you told me Davante Adams is coming back and Julio Jones is not, I would feel very comfortable picking Green Bay. I won't because there's another game that I like more. But of the games that are in this 7.5 game range, if you tell me Julio Jones doesn't play and Davante Adams does, this would be my favorite game, okay. Not counting the big sport.
That's
game.
Fair.
But if it's flipped, Davante Adams doesn't play and Julio Jones does, then I'd probably stay away.
As of right now, it does look pretty strong that Davante Adams will. I'm not sure what the status on Julio Jones is.
Okay. Well, speaking of injured star wide receivers, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Bucks, who likely will not have Chris Godwin, who's currently listed as doubtful. Yet they are still 7.5 point favorites. No respect given to the LA Chargers. What are your thoughts?
I think this Tampa Bay team is pretty good, not just on the offensive side of the ball with all the weapons, despite Godwin's being not being there, but also the defense. The Chargers, I lauded their defense as well. And I think, they are a very capable defense, but I'm not quite sure that the offense is there. So I think Tampa Bay is a strong team. They don't have a lot of future value, so this is a tempting pick for me. I really liked them in the last week as well, and they showed they're there. It's week 4. It's still pretty early this season. This might be a reason to still wait and see where Tampa Bay is at, especially with the Chargers having such a strong defense, and reason to show that last week was a fluke. So I'm a little bit nervous about this game.
Yeah, what has impressed you about the Bucs this year? They didn't play a very good game in week 1 against the Saints. The only win so far the Saints have this year. Then they beat a Panther team, which at the time had lost 10 in a row. And last week they play a very depleted Bronco team without their starting quarterback, without their starting wide receiver. I don't understand the spread, 7.5 points. And again, this is coming from the guy who just told you to pick the Chargers last week. And I'm playing up the Chargers. I do think the Chargers have a couple guys injured on their defense. So that makes me a little bit concerned, as well as whether Mike Williams, their wide receiver, will play. The Bucs, the thing they do have, which I am impressed, is they have a very tough run defense. So to me, this comes down to how much do you trust Justin Herbert, right? The guy has thrown for 2 300-yard games in his first 2 games. So the problem is he turned the ball over 3 times last week. That's unacceptable. 2 fumbles and an interception. He can't do that. But if you believe in Justin Herbert, I smell a potential upset, but not you, huh, Michael?
Well, no, I think Justin Herbert is going to be a talent, but he's still young, right? And he's still going to have to adjust. I'm a big Bruce Arians fan. That's a big part of, my confidence in Tampa Bay. Like you say, they have a good run defense. And I think they've figured out how to put the offense together with all the talent that they have around Tom Brady. So I think they're going to play conservative, style game with some exciting plays here and there that Bruce Arians likes to throw in. I think the Chargers are, not going to be able to move the ball that well against Tampa Bay. And so, this isn't my top pick this week, but I think it is a relatively strong pick. So I wouldn't be afraid of it.
Okay. Of the games we talked so far, and the lines makers would agree with you, it sounds like the Bucs would be your
thus far
favorite so far, where mine may be the Packers. But let's talk a little bit about another very surprising spread. Surprising because Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots are not touchdown underdogs very often. Yet they are when they travel to Kansas City this week. And boy, I got to give it to the Chiefs. They look good on Monday night in beating up on the Baltimore.
Look good. They looked fantastic. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, I think, showed why he was the Super Bowl MVP this last year and the MVP of the league the prior year. That Baltimore team was arguably the best team in the league, and Kansas City picked them apart. However, I think we have to be cognizant of the difference between getting up for a Monday night exciting game against the best or second best team in the league versus playing a team that really is not as just, even though I'm sure they are excited to beat up on the Patriots. The one thing that Belichick will do that other coaches just haven't really glommed onto, and they did it against the Raiders this week and made it look like they're a dominant team versus the Raiders, which I don't believe, is they are able to take away your best weapons, right? Whether that be, here's the challenge, who is that on Kansas City? But, they've done that before. We've seen them shut down Kelsey and make it difficult for Andy Reid to adjust. They'll figure out a way to do that and make this a closer game than it should be. And you have to account for the exciting versus down game. And so I'm a little bit nervous about the game. And why do you have to pick Kansas City with so much future value? I'm waiting on them.
Yeah, you said it. Look, Kansas City hosts the Jets, the Panthers, Denver, and Atlanta. So, this Patriot team, and this is coming from a Seahawks fan, could easily be undefeated. They were a yard away from beating the Seahawks in Seattle. You stole what I was going to say back to you. I believe you 100% when you say Belichick can stop their best weapon. But the Chiefs have so many weapons. between Hill and Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield. And you already mentioned Kelsey. So, and by the way, Mahomes himself can take the ball and run with it as well as obviously throw it.
Yeah, and last night they found additional weapons, right? So they're the best team in the league, but Bill Belichick is the best coach in the league.
So we're both staying away from this one for so you know, I think most people are going to look at the two highest spreads of the week and they'll make their pick accordingly. So you could see ownership this week really pick popularity around the Ravens and the Rams. So I don't know if we like any of the others enough to tell people, even if pick popularity is really high, whether you pivot. I'm going to be simple. My pick this week is going to be the LA Rams against the New York Giants. Michael, I don't like the New York Giants. I do not like them in the rain. I do not like them on a plane. Let's break it down, Dr. Seuss size. Their offense last week, you know, when they were playing the San Francisco, now I call them the 39ers, they had almost no one healthy. Look, if you're Daniel Jones' mom and you couldn't get the game, so you bought Red Zone to watch them, so whenever they'll switch to the game, whenever the Giants were in the red zone, she never got to see her son. This New York Giant team never got into the red zone against the 49ers. And obviously, they don't have two big weapons. They don't have Sterling Shepard, who's on IR. And of course, they don't have Saquon Barkley, who's on IR. Who was Barkley's replacement? I call them the Three Stooges. Devontae Freeman, Wayne Gallman, and Dion Lewis going against the San Francisco 49ers without Nick Bosa, without Dee Ford on their defensive line. Those three guys combined for 10 carries and 17 yards.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to bet on with the Giants. And even though the Rams have found ways to lose to, you know, some of the worst teams in the league in prior years, this is the Rams team that was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago and belonged there. And last year just had a down year. They're a very good team. They showed it this last week, including when they were down big to Buffalo and came back to take the lead and really should have won that game if it weren't for a bad pass interference call. And so I think this Rams team is legit. I'm hopeful that they don't get too cute with a game that they don't need to. I think this is the easiest pick of the week. If you want to have pick popularity be part of your decision, then you can, you know, pivot onto the Ravens, which are going to come out and beat the hell out of this other team, you know, because of Washington, because of the fact that they lost embarrassing last night on Monday Night Football. But you can save the Ravens for another week. They have some easy matchups later on. I think this is the time to take the Rams, even though I think they're a strong team and have some weeks in the future to pick from. They don't have anything as easy as this week. This New York Giants team, perhaps it's the Jets and the Giants, man. Just bet against New York this year.
Yeah, and I don't think you should pivot off the Rams worried about pick popularity to the Ravens. The Ravens are the higher 13.5-point favorite. I don't think that the ownership will be very big between the two. As Michael says, Baltimore has more future value. In my little diatribe of why I'm picking the Rams, I said nothing about the Rams. I just took shots at the Giants. But I do like this Ram team. They, as Michael said, was a bad pass interference call away from being undefeated this year at 3-0. This offense seems to be clicking. They've put up 37 and 32 points over the last 2 weeks against Philadelphia and Buffalo. I just can't see this Giant offense being able to keep up with the Rams. By the way, the Giants are traveling across country to play in LA. We've seen it any given Sunday. Any team can beat any team. But as sure as I can be, and I can never be 100% sure, I'm pretty sure the Rams are going to win this game.
And this Rams defense is not that bad either. So I think this is a pretty safe pick. I do want to say, there are a couple other picks that aren't on the board this week that I think are worth mentioning, including the San Francisco-Philadelphia game, the Arizona-Carolina game, and even the New Orleans-Detroit game. And I know, Detroit and Carolina showed up this last week, but I don't see it happening again. I think New Orleans is going to come out and play aggressive and beat up on Detroit. And I see the same with Arizona.
Let me comment a little bit about that New Orleans game. Folks, you're seeing how much New Orleans truly misses Michael Thomas. Yeah. And they have not had him in the last 2 weeks, and it hurts. It really hurts. Now, as of right now, it looks like Michael Thomas should be back. And if Michael Thomas is back, I think the Saints should be able to dispatch of the Lions.
Yeah, no, that's a good addition. But let's talk for a minute about this San Francisco-Philadelphia game. So Philadelphia continues to show that they are not what they used to be. And anyone who can find a way to tie Cincinnati, which is really what happened, I think is really disappointing. In Philadelphia, Wentz had all the reason in the world to come out and show all of these ESPN announcers that he wasn't as bad as they said he was, and he proved them right. And San Francisco, even as the 39ers without, they're still a very talented team. And I mean, Eric, can we talk about this NFC East with the Giants, who are perhaps the worst team in the league, the Eagles, who can't even beat Cincinnati, the Dallas Cowboys, who are somehow going to find a way to win, and our number one team, the Washington, what's the name of the team again?
Football team. I mean, I think if you joined a little league team and you said my mascot is the football team, they say, no, you're not doing that. But apparently it's okay for the NFL. So, it's absurd that the Washington football team is in first place. They're tied for first place. That's ridiculous. You were putting an indictment earlier on the Philadelphia Eagles for tying Cincinnati. I think it's worse that they lost to Washington in week one and blew that lead and ended up losing by 10 points. This is a terrible division. Someone's going to have to win it, and it's probably going to be the Dallas Cowboys, and no one else would make the playoffs in this division. I mean, I think the Dallas Cowboys are just really benefiting from the fact that they get to play 6 games within this division.
And those games can't come quick enough for Dallas, who's 1-2 right now. And it's a little unfair that this is how the way it works in the NFL, but at least there's, 4 divisions and 2 wild cards. So.
Yeah, well, 3 wild cards this year. They changed
this year 3.
So,
right.
So it's funny as like a Seahawk fan. Yes, I want them to win the division, but it's really important that they get the best overall record, or they're playing in week 1 this year. Overall record in the NFC.
That's right. Okay, to summarize our picks, Eric, we are both picking the Rams this week to beat the New York Giants.
Yeah, and you can see Las Vegas, just by a little bit, is favoring the Ravens at Washington. And you can see where the crowd is headed. Michael, to aid people on their NFL Survivor Pools, I think it is always good to assess who are the weakest teams. Who do we want to pick on, not only in the current week, but as you're assessing the future value. So the bottom 3 teams, who are the 3 worst teams? I'm going to tell you, here are the teams as of the end of 3 weeks who've yet to secure a win. The Eagles, the Giants, the Vikings, the Falcons, the Jets, the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Texans. Personally, I know the Washington football team has won a game, but I think they belong in that conversation of the 3 weakest teams. Who are your bottom 3?
Yeah, I would add to those weakest teams also the Carolina Panthers, who have a win, and the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. I think the bottom 2 are really not a question. It's the Jets and the Giants. It's the New York teams, which is probably going to turn off a few of our viewers, maybe make some of our other viewers really happy. But I think it's not really a question, and I would be very frustrated if I was a New York fan either way, because of how poorly those organizations are putting things together. I think the third one's much more challenging. I mean, the Texans, who are 0-3, I think in like the power rankings are in the top 20 still. Some people are, I wouldn't want to play them this week. I wouldn't want to play Atlanta this week. I still wouldn't even want to play Philadelphia, who continues to disappoint. So those are all teams that I say don't really belong at the bottom, and I would be careful picking against. So for me, I think I'll go against a winless team just because they haven't won yet, and that's Cincinnati. Even though I'm a big Joe Burrow fan, I think he's going to be successful. Their line on both sides of the ball is really not capable. And so despite what he might be able to do and some of the talent around him, I think they're the third team to maybe pick against.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you at all with your first two picks, the two New York teams. My third team, though, is going to be the Denver Broncos. Michael, I've watched this team over the last 2 weeks. Since they have been without their starting quarterback, who will be out for the year, and their number one wide receiver, Cortland Sutton, that offense just looks terrible. Absolutely terrible. And I feel pretty comfortable picking against the Broncos. So those are my bottom three.
Yeah, I think that's safe. I think they're not going to put up points. Even though their defense is okay, I think they're not going to put up points. And maybe Cincinnati will. So I like that.
All right. So feel free to put in the comments your bottom three. We'd love to hear what you think. Also, we want to thank all of the members of our FFC community. We are so appreciative of you guys. If you made it this far of the video, please smash that like button. If you're not yet a part of the FFC community, what are you waiting for? It's free. Hit that red subscriber button.
Yeah, and please put your comments in. Tell us who you're going to pick this week, or just share us your thoughts. Tell us why you're going to pick who you're going to pick. We want to hear from you.
All right, we wish you good luck in your NFL Survivor Pool. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time as we preview Week 5.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.